So it's my turn to stay up here now. And I want to let you know that 2 weeks ago, in our Prosperity Plus 2 class, this book, The Big Leap, came up again, and I just had to look at it some more. Rick pulled it out and started reading it again, and we started talking about it again. And how appropriate, because I had already chosen this occasion. Who's got the clicker? Okay. I had already chosen this occasion because of a couple of different things. One is that a year ago tomorrow, we did that, and many of you were there, and Bill and Elizabeth, Reverend Bill and Elizabeth, married us. Yes. And boy, did we have some good food, huh? And also, just a couple days ago, we celebrated the spring equinox. So this is a time of leaping. This is a time when the gestation is over. This is a time when the next thing to do is to blossom. It is to be. It is to get out there and take that leap. It is time to show up, right? So we're going to talk about that. So my talk is called Here Goes Nothin. And one of the songs that I chose for my wedding and was just unable to sing correctly on that occasion, I will be doing again today correctly. I love it. It's called Here Goes Nothin. And it's all about taking that big leap, whatever it is for you. We've been just yakking, and for those of you who are not in either one of these classes, I apologize. We have been having such a great time in both Shortcut to a Miracle and in Prosperity Plus 2. Many of us have really been tilling and planting and really working the beds of our lives in preparation for this time. And these classes have all come to an end, or are coming, and the last one's coming to an end today. And the only thing left is to grow. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So in this book, one of the things that Gay Hendricks talks about in The Big Leap is this thing called the upper limit problem. The upper limit problem it can be described in many different ways. He's a PhD psychologist, and he did a lot of research with clients for years and years and years, ranging from those who are just starting in some way to those who are very well established and quite famous and still want to bust out of where they've been operating. Like one of his friends, Bonnie Raitt, daring to move beyond R&B and discover her own style and to do albums that were Grammy Award winners right off the bat because he helped her into her area of genius. So the big takeaway for me from this book has to do with this upper limit problem and these 4 areas that we seem to hang out in. Now the upper limit problem is just a saboteur. It is an unconscious mechanism that many of us have within us that says, oh, things are getting too good, I better mess it up. It's not a conscious thing. It's not a divinely ordained thing. It's not a thing that's built in to ensure the continuation of life. It's a mechanism that we've learned out of fear to avoid harm, to avoid danger. And it's practical in an earthly sense, but it comes from experience. It comes from that limited mindset of not remembering what we're connected with. So as you can imagine, since we've been on the planet for a little while, there are things that we think and feel and believe that are quite limiting, and they've been passed down lovingly from generation to generation to protect us from harm, to help guide us on our way, and so on. And the truth of the matter is, they are not the way life works. They're not the way energy works. Of course, in life, there are always cycles. Always, beginnings and endings, constantly, and one ending gives rise to another beginning. But sometimes what we've done is we've responded to those limitations, those periods, and we've then passed down this caution. We've passed down this suggestion that we actually do claim limitation and play it safe and so on. So the upper limit problem is this mechanism that comes along meaning well, and says, oh, danger. You're getting into uncharted territory. You're going somewhere we've never been before. You're going somewhere that I've heard is impossible. So it just sort of, sticks its foot out there and somehow trips us up. We can describe it in so many different ways, but it's something that seeks to return to equilibrium, to return to balance, to return to the status quo, rather than trust chaos, rather than trust disequilibrium, rather than trust everything falling apart and being available for a new assignment. So whatever the upper limit problem looks like to you, just remember it has many guises, and they all are saboteurs of your advancement. But energy needs to flow. So we know that's not really going to cut it. It's not going to work forever. So there's this other thing that I really love about this book, and it's this scale. And I will tell you that I studied the book with Rick. I did a talk on it. I did a workshop on it. And then we started this center. And that was all in very short order. I think I gave the talk and the workshop at the end of February, and we started the center the first week of March. So I recommend reading the book. There's a scale in the book, and I've spoken of it a little bit before. And it goes something like this. Over here you have incompetence. Then you have competence. Then you have excellence. And then you have genius. Strange thing is that because of those cultural suggestions that we've taken on unknowingly that reside in our subconscious, we spend a lot of time trying to do things that we are totally incompetent at. Well, I have to, I can't afford to have somebody else do it for me. Or I've just got to get it done. You ever try to just get something done when you're really bad at it? It doesn't happen. And more time and more money and more effort and more frustration is involved. And the outcome, of course, is not too qualitative. Nonetheless, many of us feel that we have to try to do things we don't know how to do. Well, then there's the area of competence. The area of competence says, I'll do it because I know how. So I should, because I can. So I guess I'll do it. How many of us do things because we know how? And we succumb to this cultural idea, this suggestion that because we know how, we should be the one doing it. So we do it. And how do we do it? Begrudgingly. We do it maybe watching the clock, milking the clock. We do it, and we get it done, but there's no quality, there's no joy, there's no life in it. It's just something that can be checked off the list. Once again, the outcome is not so great. For example, would you like to eat a meal that was cooked that way? I don't think so. So we move up into a zone that's a little bit more intriguing, and that's one of excellence. I re-entered a career field before I came back into the ministry. I went on sabbatical, and I re-entered a career field with the objective to work again with a team of people who are dedicated to excellence and enjoy working in an excellent way to achieve their goal. And I got that. And it was great. The only problem was their goal, their set of priorities, were not mine. I was still sacrificing my priorities and values for someone else's for a buck. But that's not the point that I want to make about excellence. Excellence is Bonnie Raitt doing just fine sticking with R&B. But there was more. What if there's something that you're really good at, really, really good at? You do it in a masterful way, and people say, yeah, I always go to him or her for this or that. Always go to them for that thing. They're really good at it. Yeah. Are you alive when you do it? Or are you just coasting because you do it well? Are you just coasting because, well, it pays the bills and people like me and I can write that book later. I can do that other stuff later. This is working. So if I can just hold out until retirement, if I can just hold out till my son or daughter is old enough to take over the business, if I can just hold out until something, someday never comes. There's actually an opportunity to find your area of excellence and think, okay, I'm done. You're not done. If you're still on this planet, you are not done growing. So there's one other area, and that's genius. What we have done culturally is to either make genius the quality of an outsider. Oh, what do? Most everyone who became a saint was first crucified, died in some really painful way first, was made wrong before they were recognized as right. Martyrs. Or geniuses are just that weird person that no one can understand, and you say, gosh, would you just simplify what you're saying because you're making me uncomfortable? Or I've had someone tell me, I can't hang out with you, you're just too intense. Okay, so we're not on the same part of the planet anymore. Should I stop being myself? No. Your area of genius may have been relegated to a hobby that you were permitted to indulge on Saturday afternoons after all of your chores were done, and before Sunday when you came somewhere not quite like this, and then went back to work on Monday and did that other stuff all over again. You may have been encouraged by a doctor to take on a hobby because your heart or your something was suffering from a lack of joy. But God forbid that you just jump out there and do it as your main thing. Actually, God doesn't forbid that. I think God encourages that. I think there's a seed planted within us that says, yes, 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 and it won't give up. Just like that thing that grows up through the crack in the sidewalk. So as you can see, I got really excited about those ideas because I'm excited about organizations and groups and this idea that in small units and in larger units, even as a global family, if we give each other permission to reach for our genius, and in the meantime, at least enjoy discovering and hanging out in our excellence, won't things get done well? Won't we have the best outcomes, the best dividends, the best returns? Won't we have the best results, the most beautiful, the tastiest, the most finely engineered? Won't we have the best heart rates? The best cholesterol? Won't we have the best everything? I think so. There was a time when now I asked Aggie to read that passage because Hendricks was saying we're evolving into our capacity to recognize that this is possible and to stop seeing it as a fancy of idealists and possibly actually a way to be on this planet together. I know Matt called me a couple times yesterday and I said, I gotta go, but I'm like, you're talking about what I'm gonna talk about, but I still have to go. This idea that when we discover what really lights us up, where our power lies, yes, that's on every blue card, and now you know why. When we discover that, when we give one another permission to do that, and when we live from that place, everything gets done well, everybody gets to live well. Would you imagine that our health and our relationships, our prosperity, our creative self-expression would just be off the charts? And yet, despite all of that uniqueness and that diversity and each unique expression, there would be a oneness. And the oneness would be that quality that is back of all life. So I got so excited that I just created a whole Marcia philosophy around that. And I compared it and correlated it to everything else that says the same thing. I got so excited. Then we were doing this Prosperity Plus class, and Mary Morrissey's son, Matt Boggs, steps in to do one of our teachings. And he talks about 4 takeaways from the book that came up for him. And first of all, before I share what those are with you, Hendricks also says in the introduction, I happen to do haven't had to do anything I didn't want to do for so long, I can't even remember what it feels like. Now you may notice possibly two responses sort of arise in you at the same time. One of them might be, let's say one of them is inspiration or envy. And maybe the other one is sort of a little bit of guilt or shame. So we've got a name for that. We call it a guilty pleasure. But would you like to imagine that your life too could be one in which everything you do is something that you enjoy? So much so that you can't even remember this idea of thinking that you have to do something that you don't enjoy? Because someone else really does enjoy that thing that you're not good at, and they're seeking more opportunities to do that thing. Can we trust and let go and allow our world to unfold that way? There's a line, a spoken line in the song on Van Morrison's, I think the album's called Avalon. No, maybe the song is called Avalon. Anyway, in this line, he says, wouldn't it be great if it was like this all the time? Wouldn't it be great if it was like this all the time? Sort of the voice of a child. It would be great, and it can be great. So, Matt Boggs translated what Hendricks said about these four other things, and I'm going to translate them yet again. 4 reasons why we might be holding back because. We might be holding back because, and I gave them wonderful names. We might fear that we're actually a fraud. We might fear that we will be found out as actually incapable or fundamentally flawed in some way. Isn't that funny? It's a secret fear that is so common. And the fact that it's so common means we can let it go. Turns out lots of people say, what if they find out I don't know everything already? Do you ever let that stop you from starting to learn something new? When you were a kid, you didn't stop. You just said, well, let's go for it. It seems that the older we get, the less likely we are to believe that we can learn something new. And the fact is that everything starts where we are. Everything starts at some beginning. So rather than being afraid that we're a fraud, say, I might stumble a few times, but I'm really drawn to this thing. I'm going for it. Now I know that's a common fear. I'll let it go. Maybe you have a fear of being thought of as a flake. Fear of being thought of as disloyal to your friends and family, and they'll abandon you. What if you succeed in doing what you love, and they think you're nuts? What will you do then? Yeah, that's a good idea. Keep going, laugh, and keep going.
He's ahead of you, Marcia.
Rock the boat. It's okay. Okay, what about the fear of being fried? I just had to come up with all those words that begin with the same letter, fried. This would be the concept of, oh, I don't know if I can handle the responsibility, the attention, the scrutiny, the limelight, everything I'm going to need to know, the burden of my success. What if it turns out that you secretly have put off something that you were going to do because you talked yourself out of it because of that? And there's one more. I called it freak. This is the fear of being so different that we will make others look bad and will be an outcast. What if I'm resented or envied or ostracized? It's very much like one of the others. These are unconscious fears that we don't even realize that we're having, that get in the way of our allowing our life energy to flow, our evolution to continue, and our blossoming and our leaping to take place. And they're really common. So they come from a culture that was simply adjusting to circumstances of the time. We have things like war rations. We have things that we learned from family members who lived during the time of the Great Depression. We have things we learned since about June of 2008. Are you going to take those on as permanent beliefs? You know the story about the fisherman who had a ruler that was the same length as the diameter of his frying pan, and he threw back everything that was bigger. And someone said, "Why are you doing that?" And he said, "Well, they won't fit in my pan." I believe the person said, "Well, have you ever thought about getting a bigger pan?" The other one is about cutting off the end of the roast. Same principle. Why are you cutting off the end of the roast? Well, that's just the way it's always been done. My mother did it, and her mother did it, and that's just what we do. Did you ever think about either buying a smaller roast, which you could do, or a larger pan, rather than cutting off that extra good and throwing it away because you don't have a place for it, because it doesn't fit in your here and now? Can you imagine making room for more good in your here and now? It turns out that making room for more good in your here and now is part of how you can take this leap. It's part of how you can move. There were a couple things that were involved in what's in the book that Hendrik suggests. He asks, first of all, can we extend our periods of contentment? Can we eliminate our flow stoppers? Can we allow ease, and can we live in harmony always? So we need to be on the lookout for those automatic limiting thoughts that are keeping us from our good, and bring them into the light of day and recognize they're not true. We know a lot more now than we did then. Some of what we've been doing in the end of both of our classes is forgiveness. Not coincidentally, I don't think, on exactly the same week, just to be sure that that happens. We don't say, I messed up because that person made me so. We say, I love how much I'm just jumping back and forth between tenses, but we say how much we've been loved and how much we've been guided and cared for with the best that each person knew how, and now we know more, so we draw a bigger circle and we let more good in. And we give thanks and we move forward with new ideas. There's an interesting thing about hidden beliefs, because what they do is they pop up and they show us new experiences that get our attention directly where it needs to be, to correct that limiting idea. So when stuff happens, when stuff hits the fan, we can say, oh, must be another opportunity to get really clear about what I no longer believe, so I can make room for more good. I can have a bigger pan. I can have a bigger container. That's a buzzword in the organizational community. Container. You can have a bigger container. Another thing that Hendrik says about our fears is this: love yourself for exactly what you're afraid of. The moment we love our fears is the moment we transform them into an opportunity for growth. When you comfort a child who's afraid, or a friend even, if you're even remotely healthy, you don't say, you shouldn't feel that way. You say, it's going to be all right. You might offer them some understanding, some empathy, but you just offer a little comfort. If you can do that for yourself, when you recognize that you have a fear, it will sort of dissolve in that love. And when you bring it out into the light of day, it'll look a lot smaller than it did before you took a look at it. And you'll find yourself getting freer and freer to extend your periods of contentment and to eliminate your flow stoppers, to allow ease more often and for longer, and to live in harmony all the time. Indiana Jones is one of those examples of someone who had to believe first, and then he put his foot out, and the surface, although it was transparent, appeared beneath his foot. When he set it down, seemingly in thin air. I have all of these magnets on my refrigerator. I'm sure you have some of them too. Leap and the net will appear. The other one is something about growing wings on the way down. And then Edwene Gaines adopted the Nike tagline, and she calls it the gospel of Nike, which is just do it. Just do it. They must be on to something if we keep getting these hints everywhere we turn to take a leap of some kind. There are a couple other examples. One is, of course, Joseph Campbell saying, follow your bliss. I remember, and I've shared this before, I bought this book by Marcia MacLean, who's an organizational psychologist, called Do What You Love, the Money Will Follow. And I sat down with a legal pad and a pencil. I'm like, I don't know what I love. Wherever shall I start? But I figured I'll read the book and I'll write what comes to mind, and something will happen, and it did. That was back in the mid-'80s. It may take a while. We have a lot to unlearn. We've been busy knowing something other than the whole truth for a while now. And that's okay. We're evolving. Dr. Christiane Northrup, another thing that I love to share. She talks about when we are getting ready to be born, when the quickening takes place, the cafeteria shuts down, and we are no longer fed by that place where we have been. We're pointed in a new direction. We're restless. We don't know why. We turn around. We might kick. And we go into this period where we can't see anything. Nothing's working anymore. We have no idea how it's all going to turn out, but we instinctively move in a new direction. And we end up arriving perfectly in a new world that's already been prepared for us. But if we resist it, we risk our lives. The truth of the matter is this is more than an idealistic fantasy. If we don't allow energy to flow as it will, as it must, as it does, by means of us, it will find another outlet. But it might mean that our body has to drop. Ernest Holmes has this funny line in one of his talks about prosperity. It's a recording with him and Catherine Ponder taking turns, I guess. Well, it's just a recording of them talking like this. He says, if the body gets too congested, you simply get dead. You just get dead. Because life energy will find its outlet. You can't stop that. But if you want to, because you're free, you can deter it. You can baffle it. You can make the way crooked. You can make the way congested. It will find an outlet. But why not have it be through you? What if there is a gift, and you're discovering your excellence and your genius, that not only brings you to an experience of life like never before, like heaven on earth, but it's something that you're here to give. It is something you're here to deliver. It's something that no one else other than that point of awareness within the mind of God living here on earth can do. Wouldn't you like to get that gift? So I guess if I'm standing before a very large jury, what I'm saying is that there is such a great case for taking that leap, for favoring your genius, for allowing yourself to let go of what you're not good at, and don't do what you can do just because you think you should. Focus on your excellence. Discover your genius. Let your life be great. Take that leap. Everybody wins. Thank you.